welcome to the first Old World Meta Weekly, hosted by Old World fanatics, but for Old World rankings. I'm Gummo from both the podcast and the author of Old World Rankings website. I thought I might as well throw my 2 cents into the weekly ramblings about the meta. But given that it's also the end of September or close to the beginning of September, October when you get this, I'll probably cover the month rather than the week. But in general, probably try and do around the same time as this time each week, cover the tournaments over the weekend and some of the news and sort of shiny things we might be seeing around the meta, the lists, things like that. If you are joining the first time watching, obviously this is on Old World Fanatics. We're a weekly Australian podcast on a Monday. You're welcome to join in on the live stream and our Patreons and all the subscribers and things like that and jump on there if you want. You can check all that out over on patreon.com/oldworldfanatics or just like, subscribe, leave comments, that sort of stuff. Really appreciate it. It does go a long way and helps the YouTube algorithms, helps us get more reach and get more Old World goodness out there into the metaverse. So let's kick on. Basically, I'll be running through using the Old World Rankings website in terms of some of the results that have come out. As I said, probably mostly over the month this time, but maybe it'll probably go down to weekly as we progress this series. Before we kick off, I want to give a shout out to Malign Musings, Dan over at Malign Musings, who uses my site to do a lot of his meta analysis. If you're after some pretty in-depth list analysis, where things are going, more from a proper statistician, whatever the word is, definitely check out Dan. Like, subscribe over on his channel as well. Definitely worth it. But this is my 2 cents. I'm not the expert in all things meta, but I do like finding out the little things that are people are taking, things that are moving and shaking, all that sort of stuff. So it might be worth listening to as you're painting and getting your next army up. So the first thing I want to do is probably jump over to just the faction stats for basically comparing like this month versus last month, that type of thing. I was actually going to go on a bit of a rant about RTTs versus GTs. Up until last week, I would say that we were seeing a lot more RTTs than GTs. And obviously in Old World, that's a bit of a weird name, like a grand tournament when it's still only 30 or 40 people, but the idea being a 1 day or a 2 day, basically. But yeah, end of September 2025, we had a huge weekend of GTs. So that really skewed it back up. But in general, I'm seeing definitely Old World is, a 1 day a game. Like there is a lot of tournaments out there that are 1 dayers. Obviously still a lot that are grand tournaments. It's still growing. But I wouldn't be surprised if the hypothesis turns out to be fairly true that this game and I don't know, its clientele love a 1 day tournament. Just get in, get out, 3 games, roll some dice with your mates. And that's sort of, becoming a bit of a norm, which is kind of interesting. But in any case, let's just have a look. Let me just, I've got some links that I've sort of tried to bookmark, make it a little easier. If you haven't used this site, it's oldworldrankings.com. You can use it for free. You do get bombarded, I think, with a little bit of ads if you do that. If you sign up for free, at least it knocks out the Google ads, but just helps us know who's using it, how many people are using it daily, stuff like that. And allows us to contact people and find out where we should take the website. But overall, though, if you are following along, probably mostly looking at the global factions and the top lists in those months that we're looking at in the weeks and stuff like that. So I'll just bring up 2 windows here quickly. Which one was this? This would be last month, and then this is the month before. So I guess the things, and I'm just looking at quickly at GTs here. Although, we'll look at GTs here. Basically, like I said, September's the month of GTs. We had like 36 last month, and then it jumped to 69. So a massive, a bunch of weekend tournament gaming over last month. I would say, obviously, that's things like the LGT, the London Grand Tournament, and obviously the World the WTC, and there was a number of sort of practice events and stuff that came up. And there's a few GTs earlier on the month as well. So I think that's what really skewed it up, which is really cool. I guess the big story, as most people would know, I guess it's not news, is that Cathay is just dominating the GT scene at the moment. So even back a month ago, it obviously was up the top here. But the interesting thing I think you see is if you're just looking at GTs, like the month before last, Cathay is still podiuming a lot, but you still see this dribble of, Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, Beastmen sitting up here, stuff like that. When you jump it over to the last month, obviously Grand Cathay is skewing even more into sort of the overperforming category with 186 games played over 38 events. But its podium appearances are just taken off, totally left the others for dead. You can't even see, geez, where's even vamps on that, which is kind of funny. Or maybe I'm just missing it. Wow. You see a big difference in the last 30 days, really, with Cathay just really dominating that space for getting into podiums. And on top of that, you also see it in like the faction win distribution. If I actually join, let me just join the sub factions back to their parents, so you just see just the main factions, because a couple of people are starting to use Jade Fleet, which ironically, and I don't have every list obviously, but it feels like a lot of people are using Jade Fleet, but really just still taking Cathay. And there is a few that have taken actual Empire, but a lot of the times, the couple of Jade Fleets I've seen are still probably just using it for the rules rather than bringing in Empire, which is interesting. But yeah, if you look at Grand Cathay, when you join them all back together, I mean, it's insane. How this is. Remember, this is five game tournament, so 56% of the games, the results in a tournament, Cathay are ending with 4 or 5 wins out of those 5 games, and then you get higher again. So what's that? 70% close to it is 3 wins or more in a GT. That's huge, and only 2.6% of events that Grand Cathay went to, they didn't win a game in a GT. 2%. So yeah, it's not huge numbers yet, let's be honest, but it's still pretty crazy. Well above the others. So if you think that's a problem, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, maybe it's just the new toys. It is what it is, I guess. The other thing, while Cathay is dominating the GT scene, the Warriors are still solid in sort of the RTTs, but they've actually dropped off the GTs, which is, I don't know if that's a combination of people who were playing Warriors moving to Cathay, which I guess there probably is a bit of that. But certainly when you drop, if I just drop both of these over here, last month you're seeing in the RTTs, and you're seeing there's 103 games, and obviously the number of tournaments are different each month, although they're pretty close. Yeah, 114 to 117, so pretty close. Last month was Warriors of Case, 103 events, and then they've dropped down to 90, so they've lost a few people. Not a heap, but some. Dwarves up a little bit, which is interesting. But if you come down, I'm pretty sure it was this anyway, Warriors dominating the RTT podiums last month, and still up there with Beastman Brayherds as well, dominating the podiums for the RTTs, the one-dayers. Cathay's obviously up there, but there's a lot. I mean, this is probably a lot healthier, where you're seeing a breakdown of Cathay, Orcs and Goblins, Vamps, Dwarves, Kingdom. And this is what I guess what I'm sort of alluding to before last weekend, when the GTs really blew everything out. The RTTs didn't have this massive skew of Cathay, which, again, maybe it's the clientele that play an RTT versus GT. People who are going to the big events are tournament goers. They're going to metagame. They're going to buy Cathay. They're going to get it up and running. They're doing team tournaments, all that sort of stuff. Whereas one day is a lot more of people who are, maybe it's their only army, so they are going to take, dwarfs or whatever. And they're not so quick to get them out. So maybe that's part of it. I'm sure people who know more about stats can read into that a little bit more. But it is interesting to see that Warriors are still a very solid choice in that RTT space. But it is funny that when you drop over to the GT, they drop down significantly. Actually, not even a little bit, but significantly. Cathay is obviously smashing it, and then Beastman. Okay, when I say significant, it's probably not that bad. But yeah, over the last month, Warriors definitely fell off the sort of the podium finishing, at least in GTs. Now, again, maybe that's just the clientele, the player base who are playing Cathay and all the others. It's hard to say, I guess, but yeah. No, tell me what you think. But what do you make of those numbers? What do you make in your scene? Around the difference between what if you go to a GT versus RTT, who's going, and the types of lists and factions they take. Because it does look kind of interesting. Probably what I want to do too. These are only going to be short videos. They're not going to be like hour long or whatever, like our podcast. So you don't have to listen to me ramble too long. But given we have such a broad spectrum of tournament data coming in here, way more than anyone else, and I will welcome Exon in here as well. Just this month came on as well. We had Champions Hub integrated last month, I think, and then Exon, which is used a lot in Sweden, which I want to touch on a little bit too. So I thought, even though we're talking about GTs, when we talk about RTTs, let's give some of the shout outs, some of the praise to some of the smaller regions who may not get some of that exposure that you see. So a couple of weeks ago we had let's just open this up from my link. We had Arca Negra running a new recruit tournament out of Spain. Interestingly, most of these people I notice, at least in the European teams over here or tournaments, played in the WTC as well. So these obviously top talent players. What I'm seeing with some of these RTTs is, because Cathay, I guess, Cathay doesn't seem to dominate as much. Double Behemoths and Dragons and all that are still coming out to play in these small tournaments. So Alberto, who is obviously was representing Spain in the WTC, he's got the double Necrolith Bone Dragon plus 2 Necrosphinxes and 2 big blocks Skelly Warriors as well. So you're seeing that people aren't going to fall off the Behemoth wagon at the top just because of 1.5, which is really cool. We also had pretty much our largest RTT that always happens in Australia every 3 months now. At Western City Wargamers, we had the Spring Fling just finish up. And the winner of that, Chris Shah, took double Chaos Dragons and still dominated not only double Chaos Dragons, but also 2 giant Chaos Spawns of Nurgle and then a big block of Forsaken, which I guess, with the scenarios and things that were playing in that tournament, being able to hold a couple of objectives there, but then obviously destroy your opponent, knock them down below those objective levels, things like that. These Chaos Dragons still can come out to play. So it's especially in these RTTs, and I guess my gut feel is it's because you're going to play the large large RTTs, that you're not going to always have the best player run into the best list all the time. You're going to sort of play around the middle, and then eventually whoever's smashed up people enough will be at the top of the tables. Obviously, some of these guys did play each other, but a lot of them can't. In just when you got 40 players, it's hard to match it up with that number. So I guess what happens is some of these big lists that have the big dragons and the big death, the behemoths can actually do some damage, especially if you're taking on mid-level players who may not have the suitable list for that sort of stuff. Which, I think it's cool to still see them out there and that they're not dead. Dragons are not dead just yet, which is cool. I do want to give a shout out again to another Australian tournament that happened on the weekend over in Western Australia, the Doomseeker Hammerhand. Here's an example. The first, as far as I knew, was, if not first, it was the first of the weekend the Jade Fleet's used in Australia, potentially, at least from what I saw list was, and actually did take some Empire in this one, which is cool. So this is sort of a list that I thought, this is 2,600 points, by the way, as well, that I thought would be a fairly quick way to get a Cathay army up if you don't want to paint a billion models well, they are quite big. You've got Miao Ying, you've got a Shigengan Lord on there. You've got 2 Skylands, which I think, let's be honest, you're probably not painting more than 2 now. I think they're going to start getting comped when we looked at some of those GT levels at some point. Your local meta is probably already comping them. So you're brave, especially in Australia, to go and paint more than 2 at the moment, I think, or even buy more than 2. But he's got that. He's got a big block of Jade Warriors and the Jade Lancers, obviously, to make up core. Got only 2 cannon, like 1 cannon and 1 fire rocket battery, which is not meta. That's pretty good. I like that. And then he's thrown in the Mercs, just 2 units of 5 Outriders plus the Priest of Ulrich. So I think that's a fun. Obviously, I'm trying to build up a Cathay army as well. I'll probably go down something like this just to get it going because I've got Empire. So might be good to use something like this list as a bit of a cheats way to get ahead. The other one I want to call out though is the Minotaur Bloodherd got a podium. You're just not seeing it at the moment on this. And now again, only an RTT, but I want to just give him a shout out. I think that's awesome. It's a double Doomball Minotaur Bloodherd list. With a big block of Minotaurs and a big block of Gore Herd here as well. Couple of ambushes, which is cool, and double Gorgon. So again, realistically, it's very similar to the double dragon, double monster. Obviously not as mobile, but being able to dish that out and obviously take a lot of damage as well with the multiple -1s to hit on some of these Doomballs and units, which is pretty cool. I really would like the Minotaur Bloodherd to be good, but yeah, the game's probably not totally suited for monstrous infantry at the moment, unfortunately. But it's cool. It's just good to see. You see these pop up. The other one I just want to quickly give a shout out as well. Like I said before, Sweden, who one of the newer regions on Old World rankings, and they use Exon a lot. So we ended up integrating over there. Nicholas is a WTC player. He took out Gates of Westbridge a couple of weeks ago with Beast Wild Herd as well, which is obviously outside of Cathay is one of the meta choices you see up there. I guess they're not routinely getting undefeated, but they're routinely podiuming, or whatever the word is. So it's a very strong list. Obviously, Voltide is just insane, and being able to boost that with magic, with they're boosting each other. Plus, he's got Jagged Dagger in there as well. Yeah, pretty good and solid Wild Herd list. Now, the thing I wanted to call out, though, with Sweden, which we'll probably do a video on this if I can get one of them on, is their use of the selection point comp system, which I guess, if I could title it any other way, is Sweden going to fix the whole world like they did with Fantasy Battle with the Swedish comp? Basically, what this is a selection point composition. So basically, you get a certain number of negative points when you pick certain things, and you can choose to either start off at 20. You can't go below 0, basically. So you can start off at 20 if you want really hard lists, because that way you get a lot of negatives until you hit 0. Or if you want your tournament to be soft list, you can go in that sort of 10 range. And so an example, I won't go through this whole document, but I'll link this in the show notes. Something like Miao Ying has a modifier of -8. So as soon as you, like, for example, if you had a soft list and you wanted people to bring soft and you chose 10 as the selection point, once you take Miao Ying, you can't even take it. What's that? She's also a level 4, but the -3 modifier. Oh, okay, that's included. So she would be -8, so it doesn't really give you a lot of extra stuff to use. If you go down and look at Cathay, just doing it on this fly, sorry, I didn't actually prep this. Where's Grand Cathay? There we go. Each of the same unit after the third is -2. You probably can avoid that. You probably can't have any more level 3 or 4s. So you can't really have a Shigengan in this list. Is that right? Because they're always level 3, I believe. Shigengan Lord General -2. Maybe you can. I'm not sure how that works. And then it's some of the, even the item upgrades. So like the Alchemist Mask, the Plague of Rust bound spells -2, more shards -3. So you can really see how it's a little bit like the Swedish comp, obviously, what it used to be like. And they keep updating it. They're up to 1.3 at the moment, I believe. And you can just check this out. So I think it's pretty cool. It worked really well and didn't. I mean, it's obviously a little bit of extra accounting, but it's potentially something that's going to be needed because these Cathays are just romping it everywhere. So, and I'm not sure that Games Workshop's going to keep up with that, especially as they're bringing out 2 more armies of Infinity this month. It's going to be a bit tricky. But anyway, that's cool. If you want to check that out, I wanted to give them a shout out and a link over to this selection point comp system, which is another cool thing that popped up, at least over the month that I was looking at. And one more sort of tournament, and I'll just bring up if my list will work. It won't. Sorry, the link in my show notes is not clicking through. Is a Poland tournament that was mid-week, mid-month, I should say. Grand Cathay took that one in terms of tournament points, but the undefeated one here was Orc and Goblins. And what a meta Orc and Goblin, well, Goblin list. With the Goblin Knob level 3, Idol of the Gorks, the casting guy. We've got a battle stand. This is going to be a bit of a Death Star in one of these Night Goblin mobs. Got a couple of cave squigs, and then lots of level 1 illusions. So obviously trying to get off glittering robes. You've got another orc. Oh, so there is an orc. Sorry, it's not just orc goblins. Orc weird knob elementalism lore familiar. So 5-up wards happening. All that sort of stuff. Plague of Rust. And then you have, count it, not just 1 unit of Night Goblins, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5, making a total of 14 fanatics to deal with. And if you don't want to get close, he's going to sit back and shoot you with 3 bolt throwers, 2 doom divers, 2 goblin rock lobbers. So it's pretty simple list probably to play, but God, those 14 fanatics, even though Games Workshop tried to comp them out a little bit, obviously you can still push it hard on a 2,000 point list if you really want to, and you don't want to make any friends. I wonder if Santal, is he playing? Okay, no, he doesn't play for Poland. Just wasn't sure. Some of these guys, if you click through their names, you can see that they were in the WTC. Not sure if those guys are, but yeah, interesting list. Wouldn't want to see that across from the at a tournament, I don't think. Anyway, that's sort of what's been happening around the globe. Obviously, that's sort of just the stats, and you saw some of those lists come up. If you want to do that yourself, obviously jump on oldworldrankings.com and go to this top army list. You can filter by faction down to the sub-faction. You can filter now on points. So if you just want to look at greater than 2,000, equal or greater than 2,000 points. Also, some of the player counts. So if you just want to look at sort of larger tournaments over the last 30 days, for example, you can start seeing some of those ones. And obviously, WTC, all the lists coming in from WCC, Clash of Nations are going to dominate that list this month, obviously, at the moment. But worth bookmarking and jumping through there if you're after some inspiration on that one. But anyway, outside of that, that's probably all I wanted to cover this month. Just a word of warning that GTs are crazy places with Cathay roaming, but if you're in the RTT space, you might be able to avoid some of them, but you might have to bring some dragons still. So I don't know if that's the summary or not. But anyway, enjoyed this video. I hope you liked it. It's just a quick one, just a quick weekly wrap up of what we're seeing out there in the meta. Please leave your comments, suggestions, things that you've seen, maybe things you want me to talk about, or if you want me to have any guests on, stuff like that. More than happy to take your feedback on all that. And until next time, I guess we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.